Michael, you're muted.
Don't you like the silent movies? Okay. Now let's see if I can remember what I just said. I think I said welcome. Okay. And we'll have a little discussion before Tuya comes with the meditation. Now, I'd like to, by the way, I've put into the chat box a link that Olivia sent. It's about the potential bombing of Iran and the concern that exists for some who are, you don't see the link, that's strange. Oh, let's see if this will help. I'm really getting off to a good start here, right? I will copy this and let me know now if there's any problem. Oh goodness, that's there. But you know what? I think I just didn't hit the, yeah, you should see it, right?
Yes.
You got it? Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. Right. So, Olivia follows a lot of the politics here, and she wrote this as, sent it to us, to Tuya and me, as yet another really significant danger. So I was going to, put the whole thing in the chat box, but I can't do it because there's not room, but the link should take us to where we need to go. So it's something I think that you'll want to read. Right here in Europe, it is, well, it's the 4th now. And that means the 4th of January. It means that the runoff in Georgia is on the 5th, tomorrow. I mean, maybe for, a lot of you, it's still the 3rd, but the runoff is just upon us. Between Kelly Loeffler and the Reverend Warnock, and between, I don't know his first name, Perdue, you can write it in the chat box, and Ossoff, a young man who, seems to speak the truth. That is coming right up, and we do have to have that runoff in our mind. And why is that? Well, look, by the way, just very quickly, Yvonne, nothing has happened yet in Iran, but except the threat of flyovers and loading B-52s with nuclear bombs and having them sent into the area, and very visibly so. Okay. But anyway, first things first, I think we all agree that the blue forces, the indigo forces, are closer to the program of the soul. closer to the divine plan. Nothing is perfect, okay, especially in the way we human beings interpret things, but it certainly comes a lot closer to helping us manifest the divine plan in our own limited ways, a lot closer than the violence of the lower red, which is the exoteric color of the sixth ray, the Martian red. Now, obviously, those forces are gathering. We know that the forces of evil are called by many names. The forces of obstruction is one of them. Forces of materialism, forces of obstruction. And we see right now an attempt, a very venal attempt, to obstruct the process which is going to occur on the 6th of January. Now, so we have two very consequential days. The 5th of January sees the runoff in Georgia. And if things go towards the blue plan will have a chance to be far less obstructed than if even one of those blue senators loses. And of course, all kinds of watchfulness around that election is necessary. We're just going to, in a few minutes, I'll ask Jose, who lives in Georgia and is closely following all these things, to give us his impression. So we have to have our minds in a protective mode and to bless very much the forces of the blue. Now, there have been tremendous voting already, but, you know, in how votes are counted and so forth, in a typically red state, watchfulness is required. Now, maybe we can say, okay, out of the sheer spirit of vengeance, revenge, the present occupant of the White House is fracturing the Republican Party and placing the senators in a very, very difficult situation because they're thinking ahead to many of them to the election of 2022, when 21 seats for the Republicans will be voted upon, and only 13 seats for the blue forces of the Democrats. So they want to stay with, well, I hate to say it, but you know, the masses, the mass consciousness, and the kind of ignorance that is generated by the gullibility of inexperience in general. From the reincarnational point of view, we're dealing with less experienced souls. Now, of course, look, you know, we've all been there, and we have been probably in Atlantean days easily molded by the demagoguery of that time. So, you know, we're told that the masters stand firm against the forces of evil, but not against any human being. They do, you know, still love the erring human being. Now, it's a bit of a difficult discrimination because at the moment there are some people who are so blatantly dealing in untruth, in bald-faced lies which have no connection with reality. It's just fantasy. Sometimes when you think about what you call reality shows, they should be called unreality shows. That's really what's going on, and that people can wander off simply because of their desires into the propagation of unreality is, I think, something on this scale, something new, although it's been building up. So, the chances are, well, we just don't know what the chances are. Maybe Jose can tell us what his impression is from polls and other, sources regarding Georgia, but we certainly have to have Georgia protectively in our mind as we as the day approaches. And from now on, absolutely, we've been building up to that point. As far as what goes on, there are even senators now and representatives who are invoking violence on the 6th of January. Interestingly enough, the day of Epiphany, from the tradition when the three wise men finally reached the Christ, as they say, at least symbolically, beneath the star. So that is a special day, and it's also a day when great obstruction and drama are planned. There's a plan to prevent senators and representatives from reaching the Capitol, to block them. There are plans among the most extreme to attack them. Who knows, some attempted takeover of the buildings. You never know. These kinds of things are already cooking in the minds of those who are extreme and extreme in their ignorance as they think of the falsehoods that they accept as truth. So this is a dramatic day when it is not likely that anything can be overthrown unless Vice President Pence attempts something illegal, and then there will be immediate, lawsuits. But the idea is to try to delay the whole thing so it gets thrown into the House of Representatives, where the red forces would definitely win simply because of the number of states that they control. And, so as to say, the whole idea of martial law, the whole idea of bombing in the Middle East, the idea of inciting violence among the angry, mostly angry young men who really feel alienated and thus call themselves proud. I mean, where does that word proud come from? Proud boys. It's a very telling title because the boys indicates the immaturity and the pride indicates the attempt to at least foster some sense of being somebody which they aren't. So you can see the kind of inferiority complex psychologically which sweeps through such movements and their resentment against the so-called elite who are, in many respects simply educated and more experienced souls. So this is an existential crisis, and it's going, it really exists all over the world. If it goes the wrong way, those totalitarian dictatorial forces will be swept across the globe and they will rise. So naturally, we have our reasons for wanting to give it our all internally, subjectively, so that we can be part of the great defending wall, however reduced our role may be. We're not the hierarchy, but to be at least part of that great defending wall, that's what we want to be. And really with great concentration over the next few days. And even then, of course, it won't end. We know that because we have psychopathology in power, sociopathy in power. How did it happen? A slow process of the cultivation of ignorance and irresponsibility. And a great lesson will be learned, and DK seems to think that it will be learned. Fortunately for the soul of that great people, much suffering lies in store. You know, that's quote unquote, and it really means that survival of the good will occur, but with how much delay we don't know, and the nature of the suffering is already with us, with the neglect, the irresponsibility with regard to the entire COVID process. Now it is revealed. Now, further, you know, this is my kind of news report. Many of you are up on it, okay? Um, a tape has been found dating from Saturday, I guess today is Monday, in which again the present dweller in the White House has called the Secretary of State, I think it's Secretary of State or someone involved, you know, supervising the elections. I think it's, you'd be able to tell, Raffenberger or something, and leaned on him to produce 11,780 votes. That is one more vote than the margin by which the present dweller has lost the election. The tape exists. It is obviously a blatant, lawless manipulation. And it's all over the place now. This tape exists. And I don't know, does it make a difference when it comes to the people who are such true believers, you know, that their own belief is making a god out of the dweller. Think of it, making a god out of the dweller, okay? Maybe it affects them not at all, but for thinking people, there is the rigging of the election, a total projection on the part of the dweller upon the angelic forces, a total projection of what the dweller itself has in mind to do and has been doing. So this is a new fly in the ointment, and you know, over the next 2 days, we'll see how it works. Now, I'm going to, you know, stop talking here, and maybe, and you know, people have been writing things, and I'll handle that. But Jose, I'd like to hear from you if that's okay. Um, maybe you just unmute yourself, and I know you have observations because you're right on the ground there.
Hello, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I do. First, I would like to thank Olivia for her help. I know that she has been financially helping the Democrat candidates here in Georgia, and that's important. Um, I agree with you, Michael, that this will not stop on Tuesday. Whatever happens, this will continue. It will just be the beginning, but it's an important step to be able to control the Senate, to be able to pass the agenda that Joe Biden has in mind. Today we have the visit of Kamala Harris here in Georgia. Tomorrow, Monday, we'll have both Trump and Joe Biden visiting us here. Something that I would like to stress is that this is not a battle between conservatives and liberals. In fact, I am myself an independent voter, leaning Democrat, but I can see the need and the usefulness of the conservative forces in the political system. The way I see it is that the conservatives emphasize the individual responsibility, and the liberals emphasize the social responsibility, and there must be a fine equilibrium between those forces in different times. So sometimes it's okay to put on the brakes, that the conservatives will usually have the Saturn part, and then the Jupiterian liberals come in and have a more expansive approach. And there's always a kind of a rhythm that has been broken in these last 4 years, because it is no longer a feud between conservatives and liberals. but between the truth and lies, and that's different. And just this morning, watching the political TV programs that I usually watch, Meet the Press and others, you could see how others are trying to misinterpret that the press has cited with the truth as having a double standard. This is not a double standard. There's a standard of truth and a standard of lies. And if the president has cited with lies, there's no way that a philosophy of double standards can apply there. We must always support the truth. The press is not perfect. There are many problems with it, but in general, except for the propaganda, the media, the echo chamber of the right today, they did the right thing and they sided with the truth for this election. The projections look good. I've been checking those. As we know, projections have failed before. However, when you go state specific, they have been better in some states and worse in others. The projections in Florida failed significantly there, and they had to do with several unique factors in Florida. For Georgia, they're more stable. And I was checking for the 2020 presidential election, they gave Biden a 0.9% advantage, and he won by 0.3. So there's always a shift towards the conservatives, or towards the Republicans. For some reason, either they don't show up when the pollsters are calling home, or they don't tell what are their true feelings about the candidates. Either way, they usually underreport Republican support. So we need to take that into consideration. But check it on the latest polls today. There's a consistent 2-point advantage for both candidates, for Warner and for I forgot the name of the Ossoff.
Ossoff, yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
So even if we then correct that by say 1 point, there's still a 1-point lead. The other big factor is that there was a strong showing in the advanced voting. In the last election, we have 5 million votes in, and for this one, already 3 million votes are in, including mine and my wife's and my friends and my kids over here. So we have a big group of people showing for advanced voting here. Of course, because I have been confined due to COVID, I thought about mailing my vote, but I didn't. I just waited for a good time in the day, and I went in person to cast my vote to make sure that it counted. And the rules in Georgia are very, very strict. They have cameras in all the mailboxes where you can drop your mailbox, your votes, your mail-in votes. It is very strict here, and I'm very proud of the Republican leadership in the state that has stood up against the immense pressure, inappropriate pressure by the president, try to overturn the election. I think that factor by itself should divide the opposition and make some people either stay home, some Republicans stay home, or basically not follow either Trump's advice or the local Republicans' advice. The party is divided locally, so that should work to the advantage of the blue team here in Georgia. So in summary, the way I see it, of course, I will be very encouraged by winning the 2 slots here. But as usual, I'm equipoised about it. Regardless of what happens, it will be an important step forward, but it will not stop there. The battle will continue. The battle of misinformation will continue. I don't think Trump will give up. And after Tuesday, we'll have Wednesday, which is the time when the Congress meets, and he has called for people to come into Washington, D.C. and this may spread to other big cities in the United States. As Olivia is, I'm also concerned about if Trump doesn't win this one on Wednesday, something may happen between Wednesday and the 20th. And I'm very concerned about that. I think we're dealing with a sick man with power at this point. And yes, I'm also looking at Iran as a possible point where he may try to destabilize the country and invoke some sort of crisis that will force the nation into some sort of martial law. And until I see Joe Biden taking the oath of president in a couple of weeks, I will be very concerned with having this mad person with such power in office. So that's basically my summary of it. I'm very confident. I'm optimistic, but it's very tight. The weather might help on Tuesday because it is forecast to have a very cold day that day, and most of the Republican votes will happen on Tuesday. Most of the Democrats we already have voted. Among those 3 millions that already have voted in, either in person or mailing in. So I wouldn't mind if I get that divine intervention in making Tuesday a bit more difficult for those remaining votes. But whatever happens, we need to be ready for this next 2 years. Will be a very big stress test for democracy in the United States. Thank you for the opportunity, Michael.
Yes, it's very well stated and very informative. You know, I've said in studying the man's horoscope that there comes a time when Saturn sits alone at the 7th house cusp, opposing Mars, opposing the ascendant, etc. It's probably another 2.5 or 3 years. But I think that significant legal action will be unavoidable at that time. And I think it will be recognized as such. So, you know, my sense is that there will be no 2024 for the present dweller. I don't know, you know, who will be put up as the opponents, but I think that all of the talk about a rerun in 2024 will be opposed by the astrological reality. We can study it, we can think about it. It's pretty strong. And it is the coming due of a lot of karma. So, you know, but we cannot rest on that by any means. Nevertheless, to have it in mind, because there is justice after all, somehow. Thank you, Jose. And let's see, what have we here? Just looking here, yeah, and as I said to Yvonne, it's the potential of what could happen in the Middle East and not yet what has happened. And then Jose gave us a very good idea about the percentages in the polls. And Jesse is saying the GOP senators are thinking about themselves, yeah, and much less the people they represent. Sure, because they want to be, you know, some of them, and I noticed all of those who have significant presidential aspirations for 2024 have gone with an attitude that will give them favorability among those who are swayed by the mass consciousness. So basically, they know it's not going to work, I think, but they want to stay in the light as far as the possible voters go, and they don't want to be dismissed. So hence they try some futile quixotic remedy. And, you know, I think that's their motivation. And some comparison purposes, Jose is giving us some links so you can, copy those things. Jesse is saying, just my opinion, but think we need to support removing all political figures and conversations from social media altogether. They should have a separate place to communicate from, and basically we have taken off. These are not on YouTube, but in our own private site, they are there, and very few, except those who are connected with us, go there. Okay. Now, let's see further. Let's see further here. Yeah. Okay, this would include all governmental, state, and federal. Yeah, well, sometimes you just have to say what you say, There's a problem. We stand on principle, we stand in spiritual being, and we call things by their proper name. Look, everybody is redeemable. The very worst at the final pralaya have to be redeemable. There's no question esoterically what this is all about. It has to happen. And those who have journeyed far into the land of distances, which is how DK puts it, have a long way to come back, but they will return through much pain and sorrow. They, they can be dissolved in the pralaya of a solar system, but not in the pralaya of a universe. Nothing's left outside that pralaya. And of course, there's many stages in between. So all are redeemable because all essentially are pure being. I mean, that gets metaphysical, but it's the reason why the hierarchy can name things as they are without attacking the individual soul. The souls are not bad, and the monads are all good. But there are evil personalities, and this is what DK tells us. And how to discriminate? Well, to know a little bit about the divine plan is how to discriminate. And DK has certainly given us enough to reveal to us who is traveling the wheel clockwise, like an ordinary personality, and who has reversed the wheel and is traveling counterclockwise and is now on the path towards evolutionary release. There's a big difference, and we students of esotericism have to have some kind of markers to be able to tell about that. We cannot support what certain personalities do, even though we stand in spiritual being, and we stand in such a way that we, bless the inner God of every being, but that inner God will take care of things, and eventually, and in not the most pleasant way. However, I would suggest that we definitely bless the blue forces these days. We send our love and our blessing to those who most represent the divine plan, even though, we're ignorant as to the entirety of it. But these days, let us bless these blue forces with all we've got and with the group ability to do so. Okay, let's see further. Okay, Tia is saying all 10 living former defense secretaries have joined together and stated their opinion that involving the military in election disputes would cross into dangerous territory. They have stated, as former secretaries of defense, we build a common view of the solemn obligations of the U.S. Armed Forces and the Defense Department. Each of us swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We did not swear to an individual party. So who's who's signing on? My goodness, you know, a real who's who of the defense establishment. Ashton Carter, Dick Cheney, William Cohen, Mark Esper, Robert Gates, Chuck Hagel, Leon Panetta, William Perry, and Donald Rumsfeld. You know, the politics of a lot of these people is very different, but they hold their loyalty to the Constitution. And basically, the fascism, which is attempting to take over the country and overthrow the will of the people, they are against that. And it's very important that they are and that they state their position. Someone's asking, Jan, what is evolutionary release? It simply means you've rounded the corner and you are now disengaging from the slavery of lower matter. It's just like the Buddha said, you know, with his Four Noble Truths. If you're attached to phenomena, you're going to suffer. And you have to turn in the other direction and release yourself from the phenomenal world and travel into the spiritual world where your true spiritual home resides as an inner deity. You are an inner deity and you have to reclaim that territory, if you will. Okay, looks like we have gone through. And Tuya, how you doing there? Okay. Now, is there anybody else that would like to speak or question? And if so, just raise your hand or just talk. You know, we're getting ready for the meditation. You know, I'm looking to see if there's anybody that would like to offer a thought or a question. I mean, DK foresaw it, did he not? The latent fascism within the United States, even, you know, in the Second World War and the lead up to the Second World War, there were powerful fascist forces in the United States, in the religious field, in the economic field, in the political field, and they were really quite okay with Hitler and with his particular philosophy. They supported him. Even some of our heroes, you know, people who have done great things for the United States and so forth, supported him. So maybe this is nothing entirely new. Now, there's a bit more that's coming here from Jan. Jan Oliveira. Ivan, it goes back to the drone assassination of Iranian general that happened last year, just about this time too, didn't it? Tensions from that, where Iran has hinted at a retaliation on the anniversary of that, something in the interior of the U.S. and U.S. warships are on the Persian Sea now with nuclear bombers on board. Well, you know, Jose used the word, and I entirely agree. There is a certain madness which is characterizing the approach of the dweller in the White House. There is a psychological desperation for a psychological survival which depends on a type of egotism in the lower sense, rarely seen. Now, you know, so many of us Americans, we are naive psychologically. That's going to be one of the great contributions of America when it lights the way. That a psycho-spiritual approach to unitive cooperation can light the way. But right now, let's face it, millions upon millions are what the Tibetans said, poor psychologists, such very poor psychologists. He said that to a man who was his disciple. And the man was a third-ray soul and a sixth-ray personality. When you put those two rays together, it's not great for psychology, and we are naive psychologically, and we're certainly naive in our sustainment of dogmatic walls of thought regarding our religious and spiritual expectations. Now that's where the healing really has to come. And that's where the great educative movement, as he calls it, the spiritual propaganda movement under the second ray, has to come forward and do its work. And that work, you know, the masters may be gathering from 2025 on in the planetary centers with their initiates and disciples and all that, but that's, I think that's going to take a century. And we have to be able to inculcate in the benighted approach, the people who have the, what we consider the benighted approach, while still being respectful of the inner God, we have to offer what's called the quality of the hidden vision. Now, in esoteric psychology too, you know, there are these ways of inducing soul control, the factor of synthesis, the quality of the hidden vision, the urge to formulate a plan, the impulse towards the creative life, the what does he call it? He calls it the urge to analyze or something like that. Fifth ray, and there's two more, you know. Yeah, the urge to idealize, sixth ray, and then I always forget the seventh, but they're there, and they can be used by people on any ray whatsoever. Now, the quality of the hidden vision, okay, this is really and truly hidden from millions and millions of people, and there's got to be a way to offer them something which can be a bridge into a greater sense of reality. Again, that's where we come in with our educative impulse and obligation. And all of us have that opportunity, whether it's on the net or with our relatives or whomever we meet. You know, it's very interesting. I was once in Mary Bailey's apartment, and she was showing me a bunch of Masonic books, which she gave to me, that had belonged to Foster Bailey. And she, you know, she knew I was involved in Masonry, and so she offered these books. I was very grateful. And a delivery man came to the door, something, and then Mary was talking kind of occultism to him. Yeah, but you know, in a very in a way that was not threatening, but I recognized what she was doing. And then he went away, and she turned around and she said, "Always drop a seed. Always drop a seed." That was one of the impressive moments. You know, she was a great lady and very powerful first ray, and you know, she lived that life. So I was grateful that I learned a little something there, you know, and it stuck with me. Always drop a seed. Now it looks like, yeah, we're ready for our meditation. But let's just see if there's anything.
Michael, I just wanted to mention that while we are in meditation, Kamala Harris is right now addressing a crowd in Savannah, Georgia. So we may want to keep that in mind as a way to reinforce her message.
Okay, excuse me. Who is addressing the crowd?
Kamala Harris, the vice president.
Okay. Wow. All right.
What does it mean? Is doing what?
It means that the vice president-elect is giving a lecture, a speech right now in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jose. That's good to be in the current time. Okay, I'm going to sign myself off here. and we will have our meditation. You can copy what is in the box, in the chat box, and maybe it will be useful to you. These various links which have been kindly offered by Jose and Livia and maybe some others here. Anyway.
Okay, I want to say a few words about the meditation. So today we are going to work with the planes, mental, astral, and physical plane. And we continue the occult way of using colors. And then we have this sevenfold field protection in the end of the meditation. Also, we call the forces of light, the angels. So, and as you have been now going through already, that because now we are like on the edge of the sword, that there are all the subtle forces are gathered, and the scale will tilt the way or another. And as we have been also studying that the forces of evil has been using successfully about the telepathic means of influencing the light forces, or the disciples and aspirants has not been using that enough. So let us be now very aware of that we must use these occult means, that we are able to at least do our part in that. And when we go into meditation, let us realize that this is a group who is moving in the ethers. It's the group who is active in those moments. It's like a magical wave moving in. The more we are connected together, the more we are standing together, the more we know how to act in the inner, the more effective we are. And we do not have now months rehearse. It's now that we have to work. So that's why our very strong will of that, as we have been stating that over and over again, all this what DK has been saying, we remember them. We are not supposed to work in any black magic way. We have to use the law, and then we are doing it correctly, but we have the right to express our will. We have the right to call the forces, and this is how we are working now. If we ever think and believe that this battle now, what is going on, can precipitate into much worse as it is now on the physical plane, then work, and then know how to work. When we are working within, we have to guard our every single ripple from our minds. We have to keep them very steady, no negative negativity in the means of criticizing anybody. We must hold our minds very, very open, our hearts open, that the forces can work through us, because we cannot ever think that we are so powerful that our will is going to happen, or our I don't mean this, that our will is that we are standing with the forces of light, but I mean that we cannot move anything in the inner. Only these forces whom we are now calling into action can really work, because we do not know what kind of Devic forces has to be how would I say, organized into the patterns that these energies can move. These inner forces, the higher forces, can do that, but we must call them into action. We must call them that they will come for aid. And this is our right. And that's why we are standing together. I think this is going to last a little bit. So I would really ask, like in the beginning we had that those who couldn't stay all the time, that it would be very important that this now we who are now together, that we understand that we must be together the whole process and bring forth and through this process. We are now working with the inner forces. We are now coming as low as possible in the ethers, close to physical plane, because these forces are trying now really to break through on the physical plane. And that is why we have to be able to work in our etheric body very strongly to bring forth these forces, not on the mental plane anymore, because this has been precipitating very close to physical plane. And that is the difference what we must understand when we are working. It's not anything, even though we are using love, it's nothing soft, it's nothing little, and it is nothing ineffective. Only then, if we are not holding our mind steady, if we are not able to hold our channel, what we are creating, open, and then call strongly, because we have to call now strongly that it is heard. We cannot look at the same time TV or write the letter somebody and then meditate for a while and then do any something else. Now it is, these days are so important that that's why we are asking those who are not who has something else to do. So we ask that only those who can now be with the process, that we will do this together and go through this process together. Okay. Michael, could you read this?
Whenever the time is ripe and the need of the people warrants it, he comes forth for the saving of the souls of men. Krishna, in ancient India, proclaimed this truth in the majestic words, where whenever there is a withering of the law and an uprising of lawlessness on all sides, then I manifest myself. For the salvation of the righteous and the destruction of such as do evil, for the firm establishing of the law, I come forth. I come to birth in age after age. He who thus perceives my birth and work as divine, as in truth it is, he goes to me, Arjuna.
Let us now for a while just reflect things which are going in United States and understand that it is the focus of the drama of the whole humanity. It is now focused in United States at this time. So just reflect in your heart and mind what we have been talking, what has been happening during the past years. And where do you stand in this? Let us now again very consciously unite within each other, being very clear why we are now here together. Do we recognize the forces which are against the human evolution? Do we recognize separatistic ideas? Do we recognize hatred? Do we recognize lies? Do we recognize manipulation? Do we recognize selfish actions? If we do, we must call the forces which are for humanity, for union, for cooperation, for right human relations, for the good for all. Again, we remember it is only 4 years to go, and only 4 years the time of the forerunner. Let us now call from all directions our co-workers, our co-disciples, friends in light. Let us call them into a huge, great, sacred circle of brothers and sisters who are standing for humanity. I would like to ask someone from the group to read the mantra of unification. Is there anybody who would be so kind? Okay, Yvonne, please do that. Unmute yourself.
Unmute. The sons of men are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve, and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all men love.
Thank you. Now we go back in our imagination, placing ourselves around the governmental triangle. We stand for a while so that everyone will really strongly feel it as well, that we are standing together. Now, consciously create a triangle between the soul, mind, and brain, so that there is a direct and free inflow from the higher self to the lower. And build this very carefully. Align with your solar angel. Recognize the vibrations of that great angelic force and work with it. Let us align with the solar angel of the United States. And realize the increasing light. Visualize this vast angelic cooperation and see how your soul is now linked in this mystery with the Dharma of this great directing entity. What is the reason that you are working in this moment for the soul of United States? Align with the Dharma of the soul of US. I light the way. align with the mission of the Christ to bring heaven to earth. Master R is preparing Europe and United States and America for the reappearance of the Christ. Let us align with that work. So whatever tries to prevent that, and of course it has to come, that is the law. Let us dedicate our standing with Him. We have gathered in your name. Lord Maitreya, be with us. Respond to his vibrations. Welcome his presence. He will come with his angels. Let us align with the army of the Christ, with the forces of light. Know that they are there. These forces are ready to act when humanity calls them. But humanity has to call, invoke. We invoke the forces of protection, of light, of Archangel Michael. And again, American disciples, if you want to call for the particular area, for a particular place, and of course everyone, if you feel something, please call now. Archangel Michael has the power and the right to protect the Christ. We are here like outpost of that force, protecting everything what is related to the reappearance. We are supposed to be the protectors as well. And now we call the same forces to bring light and clarity, reason into decisions. all dangers, what is lying now into any possibility to create disturbances on the global level must be guarded. So let us now call strongly also forces who has the right to operate within. To stop in any illegal actions which is challenging the harmony on global level. Reflect now the five-pointed star of humanity. This star is performed by New York, London, Geneva, Darjeeling and Tokyo. This star is symbolizing the perfection of humanity. And as we see, New York is related to that phenomenon, whatever it is, but via that center pours in these energies which are needed for perfection of humanity. Most active is this triangle between New York, London and Geneva. Through this triangle pours now on the planetary level more of the energies. And so we understand whatever disturbances would come is also affecting strongly whole humanity. We call protection that all these forces will be directed to the plan what is stored for humanity. We now link with the regions of America, Master Rakochi. We ask from him directive impulses. From now on, give very strong alignment with the Master R. When we now work with the triangle, which is in the United States, and where New York is the throat center. Align with that triangle, living triangle, through which these energies are pouring in on the national level. New York, Los Angeles, and Washington. Now we call goodwill people and disciples in United States. Who are under this influence to take a stand and act according to their soul. We now work in short visualization according to the centers and visualizing the color which is related to those centers. The throat center, color silvery blue, the blue predominating. While we sound Om, visualize the color silvery blue pouring into United States and coloring its aura with this predominating blue. And purifying the throat, purifying that the throat is bringing forth the truth. Silvery blue, the blue predominating, bringing the truth in words. We visualize this center now, having this beautiful blue, glowing with blue, silvery blue. Los Angeles, the heart center, 12 petals. Color glowing golden. While we sound Om, we visualize the glowing golden pouring into the whole country, fulfilling the aura with this bright, amazing, glowing golden light, and bringing and preparing the hearts to respond to the soul. the head center. And there are twofold division, but we use now the center between the eyebrows. We align with all new group of world servers in United States, whose dharma is to vision the future, bring strength for the future, and seeing the goal, the common goal in the whole country for unification of the country. The color is rose and yellow. And the other half is blue and purple. Let us rehearse a little bit because this is and maybe a little bit difficult to visualize. So rose and yellow, blue and purple. While we sound or visualize this golden, glowing rose yellow and blue and purple, pouring through the head center, Washington, pouring into the whole country. And now bringing the real vision, the vision of the soul for all people. Rose and yellow, blue and purple, via Washington. We see New York glowing with silvery blue, predominating blue, sounding the truth. Los Angeles glowing with golden light, sounding the heart which is responding to the plan. And Washington, glowing with rose and yellow, blue and purple, the real vision of the future, which is held in the plan. And we hold within our minds and calling these forces to help in this process. And now we have the next step in the process. Now we are going to work on the planes, mental, astral, and physical. And we focus upon astral plane very strongly. And because this kind of thing will certainly have disturbances, so let us make very carefully our protective work of the group. So we perform the sign of the cross of divinity, which is done from the forehead to the heart, left eye to the right eye, while we utter these affirmations. And we start from the forehead. As a soul, I work in light. And heart, darkness cannot touch me. Left eye, I take my stand within the light. Right eye, I work, and from that point I never move. See that cross, shining livingly, and see that as well in front of your co-workers, brothers and sisters in the sacred circle. Now we are ready to move as one force. We stand around the governmental triangle, around White House, Capitol, and Supreme Court. And again we do this. So I'm imaginatively asking all American disciples to step forward and being in the center of the group. And we others, we are standing in a very strong protection, protecting the work. And also everyone can now take, if you have any particular state or states, places in which you want to work, you can choose that. Also in the outer ring. We work in this governmental triangle, which is affecting the whole country. But at the same time, you can work also strengthening other places. We now will use the rose color. Rose is acting upon the nervous system. It is cooling it down. What we can see, that things are too heated up. And when emotional level, everything is heated up, or concrete mind is rampant, the soul cannot function. So we work in the psyche of United States and its people. We will bring vitalization from the soul. Removal. The rose is also working as the removal of depression. What we can see also, and symptoms of debilitation. It increases the will and will to live. So we now work with the mental field and visualize this beautiful rose pouring through the group. And we have 1 minute silence. Also, let us be now aware of Master R, who is particularly working with Master Jupiter on covenantal field, bringing forth the mental currencies, new ideas on the mental field. And now we work with the rose light upon the astral plane and bring forth this rose, very pure rose light, into White House, Capitol, and Supreme Court, and to the areas that you have been maybe chosen. And we have 3 minutes silence because the astral body is very inflamed and disturbed in the United States. 3 minutes silence. Let us now work with the physical etheric plane, bringing Rose to calm down and bring forth possibilities to reach people, making the ways of reasonable talk and discussion helping the way for those forces of light which can be effective behind the scenes. And 1 minute silence. And visualize now all these centers, through them pouring into the whole country. The rose, which is the color of the sixth ray, the personality ray of United States, calming down. Helping the personality to make transition towards the soul. And we are aware of all these astral plane devas, rose and blue colored devas, helping humanity and people in the United States, being receptive for the higher core, responding more to the brotherhood, sisterhood, helping people to see that people are not enemies, helping them to leave behind these tendencies to respond with a reactive emotional body. Let us now turn towards the soul ray of United States, the second ray. We see the Christ, and through him pours the second ray. And see the indigo blue now substituting the rose in mental plane. See everything under the impulse of the soul. In the governmental triangle, in White House, in Capitol, in Supreme Court, in whatever you were chosen personally. And then the whole mental plane, the whole country. The mental field strengthened, that it is stronger to respond to the soul vibrations and not the forces of darkness. And the astral nature we work 2 minutes in silence and bring forth the indigo blue light on the astral field, in the governmental triangle, and to your chosen place or places in 2 minutes. And then we work with the physical etheric plane. And we visualize the indigo blue working towards the physical etheric plane in White House. All the physical outer activities coming in alignment with the soul purpose. In capital, in Supreme Court, see in your imagination that this covenantal triangle is completely under the impulse of the soul. Now through the Christ who is standing above the triangle, through him pours the soul impulse, strong soul impulse through the three centers. The throat of America, completely aligned with the soul, bringing the truth of the soul. The heart opening towards the soul and bringing it forth. At the head center, reflecting the soul, soul purpose, soul values. And your chosen, personally chosen place of places. Under the soul. And let us see the aura of United States really glowing, glowing the soul, the presence of the soul, the color of the second ray. Indigo blue. There are no limitations when true esoteric work is undertaken. To this end, I seek to emphasize renewed application to meditation and a constant steady use of the invocation, particularly the one which begins by invoking the Lords of Liberation. And in our imagination, now let us form one big circle around the governmental triangle. So our American disciples, if we would form now one big circle and you return to your places. And in our silence, we recognize the point of silence which the group has been creating. Magnetic point, this is opening the funnel of invocation into the higher realm and into the ears of those who know the truth. The great invocation number 1, number 2, and Michael will lead us.
Let the Lords of Liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O Mighty One. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O Mighty One. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O Mighty One. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O Mighty One, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end.
Now we are going to create the 7 streams of fire, which we have been rehearsing already these few weeks. So let us see where we are standing in deep alignment with the inner work of protection. And now we work with this protection for all these forces of light, those disciples and aspirants which are in key places. Now to step forward, stand strong, and do their part. See how we are standing in the center. And before you create in your creative imagination, now a wheel of fire with 7 spokes. See yourself and the inner working group standing in the center at the hub of the wheel, which radiates with the living, all-consuming substance of love. See yourself and the group as if we were that hub. From that central position, we send out 7 streams of living fire, radiating upon the governmental triangle with all rainbow colors. In every breath, we become more and more united. We are only one entity. And this wheel just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Covering the whole country, protecting during these coming days all these processes. Let us work very carefully, strongly, visualizing, imagining, we send out 7 streams of living fire. every single state, city, government being protected. The forces of the soul is now entering into reality on physical plane. And the clarion is heard. We are standing for the good law. We are demanding good law to be followed. We demand the forces of light to enter in and stop the evil actions. In your imagination, visualize how the huge beam of light is now shining from the heart of the United States. See strongly the light, which is now piercing all the darkness, piercing the way that all the forces of negativity has to go. And we seal the door where evil dwells. May the blessing of the Masters rest upon you as a group and as individuals. And may the holy ones whose pupils you seek to become show the light you seek, give you the strong aid of their compassion and their wisdom, until you stand where the one initiator is invoked, until you see his star shine forth. We will not end this meditation. We keep on standing together, and we come back tomorrow at 8 p.m. GMT. Let thy will be done, not ours. Thank you, dearest friends. Let us continue standing and let us win the day for the forces of light.